What are you doing?
I'm pondering Potter, of course. Today we're doing chapters 4 through 6 in the Chamber of Secrets, and this is the section in which, in this book, he ends up going off to Hogwarts with Ron. And what I was thinking about, and maybe you have some thoughts about this, is how does it feel, and how do you think about yourself when you don't have a real family that you're growing up with? And Harry sees and gets experience with the Weasleys, and it's great, right? I mean, he sees not just all the magic, but they welcome him. He has kind of brothers, and his mom and dad, which are the Weasleys, feel like they like him and they're warm to him. And what I noticed kind of throughout these chapters is Harry doesn't usually have to introduce himself.
People already know him because he's really famous, right?
Right, and everyone has a different name for him. Do you have a nickname?
Potter.
Your nickname is Potter?
For him.
No. Do you have a nickname?
Yes.
Do people call you a nickname?
Mm-hmm.
What do they call you?
Karina.
That's not your nickname. All right.
Joking,
so everyone has a different name for him. So what does Mrs. Weasley call him?
Dear.
Dear. And I bet Harry really likes that. And she's like always calling him Dear. I don't think she calls her other sons Dear. So she always calls him Dear, which is, I think, something that makes him feel good and happy inside. But other people, as I was observing through these chapters, call him different things. So we meet Lockhart, right? Guilford Lockhart.
Gilderoy Lockhart?
Gilderoy Lockhart. And what he calls him, he says, when he sees him in the bookstore, do you know what he says? He says, "It can't be Harry Potter."
Mm-hmm.
And Harry's like, who is this guy? And he ends up on the front page of the what?
Daily Prophet.
Daily Prophet.
Which is the Wizard magazine for those of you who are like just now reading the second book.
And then Draco. And then Draco calls him the famous Harry Potter.
Like a celebrity.
Right. And he does it in a very kind of like
mean, nasty, snobby-ish way.
Yeah, like he's jealous and you know that, and I find out that we find out that Draco always calls him Potter. He never calls him Harry. He calls him Potter. So I don't know if you do, but I have a lot of nicknames that people call me, and everyone kind of calls me different things. I don't have any enemies that I know of that call me bad things, but I do have people that call me all kinds of names, and I see that throughout here, and I wonder how that makes Harry feel, where all these people call him different things. So there's another person who calls him by Potter. Do you know who that is? It's Snape.
Oh, yes.
And so when he gets to school after he does the car thing, which is a pretty interesting feat in itself, and he's talking about Snape, Snape says,
Potter.
The famous Harry Potter. Again, we hear someone who doesn't really like him calls him the famous Harry Potter.
And I know why. It's partly just because he wants to make fun of Harry, I think, for one thing. You know, just like the famous Harry Potter, you know, like that.
Yeah, it might be. Yeah, I mean, he might be trying to be being a little bit sarcastic with him. But what we also find out from Harry, as we're pondering Potter, is we find out that Harry trusts certain people. And he trusts them so much that sometimes he doesn't think clearly. And in this chapter on the Whomping Willow, he trusts Ron's judgment. So he doesn't get into the station when he should have. And Ron says, what are we going to do? And they end up taking the flying car, which is very, very, very risky. And then when they actually get there, and Professor McGonagall says, why didn't you send an owl? Ron's like, oh gosh, how come I didn't think of that? Well, Ron and Harry have this relationship, and we find out that Harry really trusts Ron. And I guess later on we'll find out that how much he actually trusts him, how much a good friend he is. And I think we find out probably he trusts Hermione too, but sometimes Harry isn't really thinking clearly because of who he trusts. And then we find another person who calls him not the great Harry Potter, but wants to get an autograph of him, and that's Cullen. And Cullen is like one of his biggest fans, just like Ginny. And so I think about Harry thinking that all these people know who he already is, and it must somehow make him think about who he is. And I wonder, since he didn't have a real family that he was growing up with, one of my questions to other people is, where did he get his values from? Where did he get his right versus wrong? We talked about this a little bit before. In one of the chapters, we also hear about, you know, from Snape about Harry being a hero. And we've talked about heroes before, and of course we know Harry is a hero, and he's already shown he's a hero. But now he's signing autographs, and Lockhart is like kind of jealous of him. You know, here's this guy who has been famous, and he's giving Harry advice about how to be famous and how not to be famous, which is kind of ironic because does Harry want to be famous?
No.
No. I think he just wants to be a normal kid. And, you know, he's not completely normal. And we talked about there is no such thing as normal. But I think he just wants to be left alone and do his own thing. But when he sees right and wrong in his mind, in which someone's not doing the right thing, or there's some injustice or something, he tends to have to act. And I don't know where he gets that from. Where does he get that feeling that he has to make things right? Don't really know. But we hear about Harry being called many different things. And we hear about who he trusts and doesn't trust, which is Ron, clearly, in these chapters. And he also tries different things with magic in these, which is pulling out the mandrakes. And they're screaming. Cover your ears. And it must be kind of scary to do something like that, but he was exhausted. And we get a sense there's something else going on here when we keep finding out why didn't the 9 3/4
close.
Why didn't it open for them?
Oh.
I guess we'll find out later. So that's it for now for Pondering Potter. We learned about his character a little bit more, who his friends really are, and who he trusts. And I wonder again, where does Harry get his sense from right and wrong, particularly since he really didn't have a family to teach him any of that?
And the Dursleys just treat him wrong, so maybe he thought, oh, if they treat me wrong, maybe that's the way the world's supposed to go. But, you know, whatever.
We don't know. All right, we'll see you next time. Bye.